We all know hindsight is 2020, but what if foresight was too? Some things are better lost than found. I'm a man of the world, and all that means is I understand what powers the world. The fuel mix is 1 part high octane and 9 parts pure bullshit. Sometimes you just have to do what you can and try to live with it. 95% of the people who walk the earth are inert, Johnny. 1% are saints, and 1% are assholes. The other 3% do what they say they can do. The question was this: if you could jump into a time machine and go back to 1932, would you kill Hitler? What's up, guys? Kingless here. It's been a while, but we're finally back. We're diving back into the multiverse of Stephen King. And today we have none other than Mr. Cy King's 5th published book, The Dead Zone. The Dead Zone was published in 1979, and it's about a gentleman that goes by the name of Johnny Smith. Johnny Smith had an accident when he was a kid that comes back to, I guess some would say, haunt him later on in life. He gets the ability for a precognition, so he can see into the future. The Dead Zone is a very good book. It's some would say it's not his best work, but it's early King, and it's early King at his best. But let's just go ahead and jump into it. So the Dead Zone actually, in fact, does have some pretty hard connections to the Dark Tower series. All right, so first of all, let's just jump into one of the main connections, which would be where the story takes place. The Dead Zone takes place in none other than Castle Rock, Maine. Castle Rock is, we have the Tommy Knockers, we have Needful Things. Castle Rock's mentioned in it. So right there, I mean, that right there kind of solidifies it's in that world. So it's in the King universe. Just right off that, Castle Rock, boom. Some more things that kind of help solidify that would be some of the characters in the Dead Zone. We have characters such as George Bannerman. George Bannerman is also a character that shows up in other Stephen King works. This is his first appearance, which is in the Dead Zone, but he's also in Cujo, which he meets his fate in. If you guys don't know, spoiler warning. He is in The Body, and I think he may very well be mentioned in Needful Things. I think he's mentioned Needful Things as well. So right there, I mean, you have a character from the Dead Zone, and in the Dead Zone, he plays a prominent role. He helps Johnny kind of solve the case, the big overlaying case of the story. So I mean, you have a pretty prominent character who is spread out throughout Stephen King's works. He's mentioned in many more. So, all right, so right there, let's see, what else do we have? Okay, so this is a good one that some may not know. It's kind of like a smaller connection. I mean, it's a hard connect, but it's kind of like sprinkled in, so a lot of people probably miss it. That Johnny Smith, so where he is actually laid to rest, he's laid to rest in between the gravestones Bowden, which is from At Pupil, and Marston, which is Salem's Lot. So I mean, right there, you're adding a connection to a novella, and you're adding a connection to one of Stephen King's earlier works, book 2 he published. So, fair enough. Some pretty good connections. But let's move on further. What connections do we have to the Dark Tower, you may ask? This is a light connection. This is kind of fun to poke fun at. But Johnny, while at the carnival with Sarah, he plays the Wheel of Fortune game. And his last bet, if anyone notices, his last bet is on number 19, which is massive for Stephen King. 19 plays a role in almost all of his books. So right there, that's like King just kind of like flashing that into our eyes. All right, let's see, what else do we have? Yeah, what does King do? So Johnny, all right, so Johnny, he has his love interest, Sarah. Before he gets into his accident and goes into his coma, Johnny and Sarah go out on a date to the carnival, and he drops Sarah off. I think he gets a taxi, And as he's leaving, you notice that Sarah actually lives on a street called Flag Street. So Sarah lives on Flag Street. That's a little another tip of the hat, Kings. I'm sure is just having fun and games with us, just letting us know that hey, this is in his world. Some people like to say that Johnny possibly, maybe Johnny himself has this shining, which that could very well be likely. I mean, his ability of precognition is very keen to the shining. He can sense when things are going to happen, mostly negative things. So that could really closely relate that to the shining. And I think Johnny, we could go ahead and say that Johnny does have, in fact, have the shining. All right. Well, what else do we have? So Johnny is tracking down a serial killer. We all find out later on that the serial killer is none other than Frank Dodd. Frank Dodd is also a character that is mentioned in other books such as Needful Things, Cujo, It. He's characters in the Stephen King world. He's kind of viewed as the big bad human. Like, oh man, that crazy serial killer we had, back then. Oh, that was crazy times. So he's kind of like a town lore in later books. You hear him referenced quite a bit. So I mean, right there, just off those things, I mean, one can only assume that the Dead Zone is greatly influenced by Stephen King's universe, and it also influences Stephen King's universe. So I mean, I think that's enough, guys. I mean, if you're not convinced by that, I mean, I don't know what's going to convince you. If there are some things that I missed, feel free to leave those down in the comments below. I'd love to hear any more connections. If there's some things that you disagree on or you want to talk about, feel free to talk about those as well. But yeah, guys, if you like this video, hopefully I'm going to jump back into my Stephen King content. I know I've kind of went dry here in the last few months, but I definitely loved King, and I'm always going to love King, and I love talking about him. So if you guys do too, I mean, feel free to sub, and until next time, peace.
I'm just good at caring too much. I'm just good at caring too much.